Hello, and yes, we're going to be looking at another Aphex Twin classic. This time it's the turn of Heliosphan. This came about from a conversation on Reddit where there was some question around what hi-hats were used. Roland themselves has said, oh, it's a 909. The marvellous Captain Picant did a recreation of it using 909 samples. However, you shouldn't believe everything you see and read on the internet, so I'm going to tell you it's a drum machine that features on this channel quite a lot, the mighty Roland R8. If you're unfamiliar with the R8, I've done some videos of it elsewhere, and you can also go watch Bad Gear, Espencraft, and a host of other way more personable internet celebrities show you that amazing snare drum, so I'll try to keep this brief. You will need the 808 expansion card, and you'll need to learn how to edit the sounds within the R8. I think this is one of the things that trips a lot of people up as well, is they'll download the R8 samples, they'll put them into their favourite sample player, and play about with it for a bit and then go, oh, it doesn't really sound like the thing I thought it was going to. And that's kind of because the R8 and its samples are much closer linked than that. The way that nuance and decay times can be applied across the samples, it makes it much more than a sample playback machine and much more of a complete instrument, which is kind of cool and difficult to recreate. So here's the famous rolling hi-hat pattern that opens the track. And if I take a bit of time to edit the hi-hat, we get so the R8's used elsewhere too. The weird sample and hold sounding thing that appears partway through is the same idea, this time using the high Q and the 808 clave samples, again unedited. And after editing, the final part of the drums are samples played back on an actual sampler. I didn't try to get it exact, kick and the hi-hat are taken from my favourite cold cut sample CD, whilst the snare comes from Apache. The incredible bongo band version. Don't forget that Richard also used Apache on Crystal, so it's highly likely he just had it lying around in his sampler. And that's pretty much it for the drums, which leaves us with the thorny question of synthesizers. I'm going to try and do all this using a whopping 2 synths. The first is a TX81Z FM synth from the mid-80s. This is in place of the DX100 and DX7 that Richard apparently had back in the day. And I'm also going to use the mighty Roland S1 in place of the Roland SH101 that again Richard also apparently had back in the day. So let's get to it, shall we? The strings that open the track, to my ears at least, sound like a layering of the S1 and TX synths. So I've started off with a low strings preset on the TX, which sounds like this. Then I changed all the waveforms to sine waves, since the DX100 and DX7 only used sine waves as operators. Adjust the levels and envelopes a bit, and it sounds pretty close. If we layer this with a low rumble from the S1, we get the counter melody that comes in partway through the track uses the same tweaked low string preset, so we're kind of killing off 2 birds with 1 stone here. I've taken advantage of the TX's multi-timbrality to have the low pad and counter melody on 2 separate MIDI channels and outputs, which makes it easier for sequencing. The final synth part we hear is, and I'm going to make a stab in the dark here, another FM synth. This time I'm going to start with the zither preset on the TX, and again tweak it until it sounds a bit more similar to the track. So we've gone from presets that sounded like to the modified versions that sound like. So now's probably a good time to talk about the Alesis Quadraverb. I've already done a video talking about the awesome things you can do with it when you automate parameters using MIDI. And if you listen to from the Merch Desk release, there's a lot of similarities in terms of the weird glitchy sounds in there. However, back in the early days, it would have just been used for reverb, so that's what we're going to do here. So here's the track without reverb. And with. The final part of the signal chain is the tape, which today is being emulated with the Chroma Console, since my old cassette player is even more broken than it was before. As for sequencing, Richard apparently used to have an Atari, which obviously I don't have, and I don't even have one of those Mr. FPGA things, so I'm using the mighty Hapax. Track 1 is a single note sequence for the main string part on the S1. Track 2 gets the string counter melody, track 3 gets the zither, and track 4 is the drum part driving the Akai. I've made use of the Hapax's plugin so I can use the same channel to send notes to the S1, and then add an octave on the strings. So, there we have it, all the building blocks are in place. Before I leave you with a squint and its kind of similar version of the final track, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Thanks for getting through this far. If you like what you're watching and all that kind of stuff, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. It does make a difference to the algorithm. And yeah, I don't have a Patreon, but if you want to say thanks or anything like that, there is a tip link somewhere below this video. Buy me a beer or contribute towards the studio upkeep. And yeah, until next time, thanks again.